guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be reacting to
The US dollar continues to crash. What's next? Let's see what we got.
Dollar has been riding high, both because markets were exceptionally optimistic about the US economy.
What has been riding? What?
For the past few months, the dollar has been riding
for the
high,
past few
both
months.
because markets were exceptionally optimistic about the US economy and because there was a widespread sense that Trump's tariffs would do more harm to other economies than the US. However, in the past few months, anxieties about Trump's erratic trade policy.
I wonder who had that sense. Because I kind of thought everybody, well, the rational people thought it would do harm to Americans than to other countries. So I don't know who's these people that had this sense that it would hurt other countries.
Have sparked somewhat of a sell-off, which has accelerated into a full-blown crash in the past couple of days. So in this video, we're going to take yet another look at the declining dollar, what it means
Well,
for the US
that's not
economy,
good.
and how it could set up an uncomfortable showdown between Trump and the Federal Reserve.
Houston, we have a problem.
Never miss an episode, and as we've mentioned in previous videos, the dollar was actually riding pretty high until a month or so ago. Once it started looking like Trump might win the election, back in about September last year, the dollar surged against other currencies. The best way to illustrate this is to look at the so-called dollar index, which basically measures the strength of the dollar against a weighted basket of other currencies. According to this index, the dollar rose steadily from late September before peaking in early January at nearly a 3-year high. So, why did the prospect of Trump's re-election, and then his actual re-election, trigger such a surge in the dollar? Well, there were basically 3 reasons. First, investors anticipated that Trump's policies of tax cuts and tariffs would mean higher inflation, which would mean higher interest rates from the Federal Reserve, and therefore make it more attractive to save in dollars. Second, there was a widespread sense that Trump's trade wars would hurt other economies more than the American economy, which made other countries' currencies less attractive, thereby boosting the dollar, because, after all, the dollar's value is determined relative to other currencies. And third, there was a sense in America's business community that Trump's promised agenda of tax cuts and deregulation would boost growth. Now, this wasn't necessarily a good thing from Trump's perspective. After all, he and senior members of his team have occasionally suggested that they would want a lower dollar to help make American exports more competitive and reindustrialize America. But it was nonetheless a testament to some genuine optimism about Trump's economic policies. However, a couple of months ago, the dollar started slipping. This was in part because investors became slightly more optimistic about other economies, including Europe, China, and Japan, which strengthened their currencies and therefore weakened the dollar. But it was mainly because, even then, it was becoming clear that Trump's policies, and especially his tariffs, were just too unpredictable, which was taking a toll on both consumer confidence and business investment.
Yeah.
However,
I'm really curious what's going to happen after these 90 days are up. Like, what's going to be the thought process of moving forward with the tariffs or not.
I don't know.
I kind of want to get it over with.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
The pitch has now accelerated into a full-blown crash since Trump's Liberation Day. As of Monday morning, the dollar index is now down nearly 10% from its January high and falling. Similarly, the euro is now trading at $1.14, its highest level since 2022. This is a remarkable turnaround. Only a couple of months ago, people were talking about the prospect of the dollar and the euro reaching parity. So, why is this? Well, as you probably already know, this collapse is a symptom of the fact that markets and investors really aren't optimistic about Trump's economic policies, and especially his tariffs. It's not just the magnitude of the tariffs, although that's clearly part of it. While Trump has now scaled back some of his tariffs, the 145% tariff he slapped on China will effectively sever all direct trade between the world's 2 biggest economies, with massive economic...
I saw on TikTok, there's vendors in China, they're advertising to Americans to buy directly from them. I'm seeing for furniture, electronics, hair,
So
luxury goods.
Americans would still have to pay the tariff, so why would they buy directly from them? I don't understand.
They say to cut out the middleman. I guess from I don't know. I think there's like the big corporations, but then there's these other.
So I guess there's like AliExpress where people can sell, but these like small AliExpress sellers.
They say come directly to me.
Makes sense. They can lower a slightly lesser price. So I get it, but it's still for American people living in America significantly
But
more.
if you read the comments, they're saying, well, it's still gonna be more affordable than buying it local.
That is true. Yeah, that is true. Well, you know what's better? Not buying it at all.
consequences.
But this is... Yeah, go ahead.
I saw some of the prices. It does look attractive, but they kind of make you buy in bulk.
Oh.
Like you have to buy like 5 purses if you want that good price.
Why you need five? Like, I mean,
It's same.
five
The same.
shirts, okay. Five purses,
Mhm.
what?
But it would be the same shirt though. You can do that. The
I,
ladies cannot do that. Okay.
I could do that. I would wear the same shirt, just new shirt, same shirt. It's fine. But anyway, I don't know how. I mean, this video posted today, but it's Trump. I don't know if it's gonna talk about it, but Trump already did an exemption to this. Electronics are exempt now, so the trade is gonna be there, and electronic trade is a huge trade. That's a huge chunk of the trade. So we are still gonna trade with China, and honestly, I feel like we're gonna get more and more exemptions. So electronics, then there's gonna be clothes, then it's gonna be food, and at the end of the day, it's gonna be, oh yeah, we do have 145% tariff, but everything exempt. There's gonna be like something that nobody imports that actually has a tariff. Nobody cares about.
It's also the erratic way that they're being applied. No one knew how big the Liberation Day tariffs were going to be until Trump brought out his chart of doom. And no one knew he was going to roll them back until the last minute. Not only had this massively undermined both consumer confidence and business investment, which is why most analysts now think the American economy is headed to recession, it's also terrible for Trump's stated project of reindustrializing America, because building out factories and power plants would require massive investment over a long time horizon, which in turn requires economic certainty. On top of that, the tariffs are also badly designed to this end. Take Trump's recent exemptions for Chinese-made smartphones, for instance. This is pretty great for American consumers, who are otherwise going to have to pay hundreds of dollars more for their smartphones. But it's actually pretty terrible for American producers. Imagine you want to manufacture smartphones in the US, for instance. You've now got to compete with exempted Chinese imports, and you've got to pay a massive 145% tariff for any components you might want to import from China, like batteries or screens, which...
Wait, so components are not exempt, just the phones? What are we doing?
That's crazy.
What are we doing?
That's crazy. That makes no sense.
What are we doing over here?
Wow.
So for Apple, you know how it says made in China, assembled in California?
Yeah.
Might as well just make it in China. Made in China, period.
Mm-hmm.
Hold it, what does my iPhone say?
actually puts you at a disadvantage to your Chinese competitors. Anyway, the point we're trying to make here is that Trump's tariffs have spooked both markets and investors, which is why the dollar is selling off. This is the same thing that's driving...
Oh, wait. They stopped saying it on the phone. It used to be back in the day. It said,
It did?
yeah, it doesn't say
Maybe
anymore.
on this one, maybe it can be older.
Yeah. No. I guess it shows my age.
driving the concurrent sell-off
That's
in
okay.
treasuries, i.e. US government debt, which has pushed up borrowing costs for the federal government. The annual yield on a 10-year treasury, for instance, has risen from 4% to 4.5% in just the past week or so, which is a ridiculously steep increase by treasury market standards. This has all pushed the US even closer to a debt crisis, not least because earlier this month Republican majorities in Congress approved a blueprint budget that could add $5.8 trillion in further borrowing to the budget over the next 10 years, according to the Non-Partisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. This feels dangerously reminiscent of the Liz Truss fiasco in the UK, when Truss's attempt to borrow lots of money resulted in a collapse in the pound and a spike in bond prices that ultimately required intervention by the Bank of England. Anyway, what does this collapse in the dollar mean for the American economy? Well, while it might help make American manufacturers and exporters more competitive internationally, any gains for them will be offset by the chaos of Trump's tariffs. Instead, the main consequence of the dollar's decline will probably be an increase in inflation, because imports for American households will become more expensive. Trump's tariffs were always going to be inflationary in the short term, but there was some hope that the consequent surge in the dollar would offset some of these inflationary pressures. If the dollar is declining, however, this will instead exacerbate the inflationary pressure introduced by the tariffs, pushing US inflation back up. This would be bad enough, but it could all be made a lot worse by Trump, who could start leaning on the Federal Reserve if it looks like they're going to raise interest rates to combat this renewed bout of inflation. A showdown between Trump and the Fed would really spook markets, and if Trump were to win that showdown, i.e. assert political control over the Fed to push for interest rate cuts...
What did it say?
And if Trump were to win that showdown, i.e. assert political control...
Trump zeroes in on the Fed, setting a potential fight with Powell. Oh, but this is old. It's almost a month ago.
Control over the Fed to push for interest rate cuts, the inflationary risk to the US economy would be massive. Regardless, in 2025, one thing is certain. We can expect the news cycle to continue being dominated.
Let's see the comments.
I don't feel like this video gave us anything new. We talked a little bit about the updated tariff version, but then what's
Mm,
now? I mean, eh, let's see what I gotta say. You're going to win so much, you're going to get tired of winning. I guess quoting Trump. To cut costs, Hasbro will soon start shipping their Monopoly games with real dollars instead of monopolies.
ooh,
That's funny. The art of self-inflicted economic recession.
yeah.
The older I
Wow.
get, the more I realize that business bros on Wall Street truly are just the same smooth-brained frat bros I saw at college. It's been 10 years of Trump, and these people still think he's good for the economy.
Yeah,
I know,
that's
right?
yeah.
That's why I said in the intro, I was like, who thought this would be good for the economy? Like,
Mm,
what? Who
mm.
who who thought that?
Wow, we have to learn this lesson, I guess.
And the fact that the market was optimistic about second Trump really shows the very few actually understand it. Right. Yeah, that's what I
Mm.
said. We're all tired of winning at this point. I'm not even American, and 2025 has still been exhausting a decade so far.
Wow. Wow, what a time to be alive.
Mm.
Guys, of course, let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join the Discord, and as always, share as much kindness as possible.